This Week in Startups is brought to you by InVision. Find out why so many hot startups are using InVision to prototype, present, and collaborate on design in real time. Sign up for a 90-day free trial at envisionapp.com/twist. And LegalZoom. Form an LLC, register your trademark, and protect your products. LegalZoom is not a law firm, but you can get personal advice from their network of independent attorneys in most states. Enter promo code TWIST in the referral box at checkout for more savings. On today's News Roundtable, Jason is joined by Cade Metz, senior writer at Wired, and Jeff Berkowski, SF Bureau Chief at Inc.
That's what it's all about, man. They said, money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. Yeah. We ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money, and defeat you. Yeah. Money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. Yeah. We ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money, and defeat you.
Hey everybody, welcome to This Week in Startups. It's our News Roundtable edition, and we have a very busy 2 weeks since we've done a News Roundtable. Google is broken up and doing this alphabet thing and new corporate structure. The stock market has gone up and down, and is it a bubble? And what's the impact on technology companies and startups? Amazon being a tough place to work. Ashley Madison in total meltdown. And, of course, this AI stuff is spreading like mad. Today on the program, two great journalists. Cade Metz is with us. He is a senior writer at Wired and previously with the Register and PC Magazine. And Jeff Berkowski. I got it. Berkowski is with us. He's a San Francisco bureau chief of Inc. and was previously with Forbes and AOL. Welcome to the program, gentlemen. Both first time.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
First time. I love it. We're getting new blood. Okay, let's start with this alphabet stuff with Google. Obviously, Larry Page and Sergey made a big announcement that Sundar is taking over Google, and that Google is but one of the many letters of the alphabet, G, and they're going to be similar, I guess, to Berkshire Hathaway, which is a holding company. Do I have this right, kid?
That's a good rough analogy.
Okay.
In essence, they're a conglomerate. Larry and Sergey and a few others will oversee this collection of companies, and as they see fit, they'll dole out money to each of these companies, which is sort of what happens with Warren Buffett, the most famous investor in the history of Wall Street, people say, who doles out money to companies that he oversees with Berkshire. The difference is that Buffett tends to find existing companies who he thinks are undervalued,
right.
And as they perform, he will give them money. This is more of a Silicon Valley, hybrid model where they're not going to be doling out money based on who's pulling in the most dough. They're going to be doling out money based on potential, right?
Okay, so this leads me to ask Jeff, why are they doing this, and why now?
Well, there are a few advantages they might get from doing this. One big one is just to get investors off their back for who don't like the various expensive moonshots that they've invested in that don't not only aren't returning anything now, but aren't even expected to or supposed to return anything for a long time until they save humanity 10 years from now.
Right. And the moonshots include?
The moonshots include, I guess, Calico, the radical health and life extension part.
Bizarre, yeah. They want to live forever.
Yeah.
The balloons. What's that called? Loon?
Yeah, it's part of their Google X Lab. So a lot of things that have kind of incubated inside their X Lab are now going to be spun off into these companies that are part of the conglomerate. So the life sciences division, where they're looking at ways of curing cancer.
Now, what is the benefit of separating this all out, though?
Well,
they're not shutting it down, right? They're separating it out. Is that going to give just more visibility on the performance of each one?
As Jeff says, a lot of it is about making investors happy, making Wall Street happy. The Google part of the company isn't saddled with these moonshots, which may or may not end up making some dough. But the other thing is they want to make sure they can continue to attract the top talent in the Valley. Okay, so if you're coming into Google to work on Project Loon, your opportunity as far as, say, stock options go aren't that great. But If Loon is its own separate company and you can, in the long term, offer stock options in that, as opposed to Google as a whole, it becomes more attractive. It becomes more like a startup.
Got
right?
it. So they can have a CEO
Yes.
of 20 companies.
Right.
And then each person gets their own compensation, and I guess the P&Ls will be broken out?
Right.
Or
But
not?
Yes, eventually, right? Right now, the way the P&Ls will work, it'll be Google and kind of everything else. That's going to happen probably in the fourth quarter. But as time goes on, you would break all that out. And it makes it attractive to potential employees as far as stock options, but also in terms of advancement, right? There's a new CEO opportunity, as you alluded to. But then, in the long term, there are other possibilities. You can spin these companies off, right? They can go public on their own.
Got it.
Right.
Makes it more attractive to get acquired too, because
Exactly.
you're not, you're no longer the number 3 guy in a huge company. You're the number 1 guy in a slightly smaller company.
So if this had existed, this format, let's say 10 years ago, or maybe it was 6 years ago when they bought, say, YouTube, which is, I think, arguably their greatest acquisition. Android was probably the other one.
Right.
They could have said to Chad Hurley, hey, you can still be CEO of YouTube. You'll be the letter Y in the alphabet. You'll run your own ship. We'll keep giving you money. You can lose money, make money, advance, whatever. But you don't have to be under Sundar at Google or whatever it is.
Right. I mean, it makes sense. Now, keep in mind, this is not easy to pull off, right? I mean, Microsoft, HP, they're essentially conglomerates, and they've struggled to stay relevant, and this may or may not work out as well as they hope. But certainly, the alternative is to kind of wither and die on the vine, right? With the existing structure, and that has its own challenges.
What does this mean in terms of antitrust and the government, which we saw the FTC had investigated Google heavily? They wanted to do a case. The case got killed, according to the Wall Street Journal, and leaked documents. The EU is pretty hot on some sort of sanction for Google. They want to sanction them because of the search stuff. Is this all some way of making it easier for Larry and Sergey to say, listen, they're different operating units. They're not influencing each other. So when YouTube ranks highly in Google, it's an independent company. They're not working together. Although those two seem to be still bound together.
They're still bound together.
Which made no sense either.
I don't think this is their primary aim. Okay. I don't
So it
think
has nothing to do with that.
Well, it's a very good question, though, right?
Right.
The EU stuff is coming to a head. Google just responded today to the EU's allegations.
Oh, really?
And they deny them, as you'd expect them to.
Right.
But this is a serious threat to the company. It's not talked about as much here in the States, but in the EU, it's a serious threat to the company. And it's an open question. Do those, now that they have this conglomerate which is ostensibly separated, do those sanctions apply to these other companies or not? We don't know yet.
Right.
We'll have to see how all that plays out. But I don't think that that's their motivation. I think that they have bigger concerns here in doing this. But
Do you guys think, Jeff, I wonder if Larry and Sergey just are exhausted and or bored with running a search engine and let's face it, an ad network? Google's just an ad network at its core. 99% of the revenue is advertising. And they've run it for over a decade. It's kind of boring to them to run a search engine. I know Larry and Sergey, they don't. When I talk to them, they don't ever want to talk about a search engine. They haven't talked about the search engine for years. All they want to talk about is Elon Musk and space and life extension and really interesting future topics. Is this executives basically saying, I don't want to run this company, Sundar is better at it? Do you think, Jeff?
I think there's definitely an element to that. I mean, I don't think Sergey in particular has busied himself with the core Google search stuff in quite a while.
Yeah. He's just been doing this crazy Google X, I guess.
Yeah, and tightrope walking and whatever else he's
Right.
doing.
And Sundar,
Is he tightrope walking?
whatever else is right. I mean, but Sundar has pretty much run the company. Everyone pretty much already reported to him.
Right.
He was already running it. It's not that big of a change in the near term, right? I mean, it's the same stuff that's going on. Just over time, this is going to start to separate.
Does this mean Google is like essentially a growth play? The Google.com, the ad business, is just not going to be exponential growth. It's just going to be this sort of like predictable Microsoft, IBM level mature growth. Therefore, it's not going to get valued well. So maybe if we're a conglomerate and we have all these moonshots, we can get a better internet valuation, do you think?
I don't know about that. I mean, I think the ad business has to continue to grow because
it's funding everything else.
That's funding everything. I mean, it's
Yeah.
well over 90% of their revenues.
What's the next biggest revenue contributor?
a really good question.
Yeah, I don't even know what it is.
You know, I don't know either.
Because
You
YouTube
know,
is part of it. It's part of the ad network.
It's part of the ad network.
What else do they sell? They don't
they-
sell anything.
they s-
Android's free.
They
Apps, Google Apps, and the Play Store.
right,
would
and
be
they
the two
also
others.
see cloud computing in the long term as a really big business. That hasn't happened yet.
Right.
But
They're way far behind
they,
Amazon.
They are, and probably Microsoft as well. But
And
in the-
Azure, yeah, for sure.
Right.
All right, let's take an ad break. When we come back, let's talk about the stock market, up and down, left and right, and people predicting and wondering what impact this is going to have on startups and Silicon Valley when we get back after this break. And hey, this is a really easy sponsor break for me to do because it's about Envision app, which allows you to turn your web and mobile designs into clickable prototypes. I use it all the time for Inside and Launch, and all my startups use Envision. And it was really great because we used the product, we loved it, and then they started advertising because they saw me tweeting about how much I love it. What's great about it is I'll get a link from a portfolio company and we'll say, hey, Jason, here's our latest design. What do you think? I open it up on my desktop, or if I'm out at a restaurant, literally, you know, my wife goes to the bathroom. I'm like, hey, I can start checking out this. I put it on my homepage of my phone, and then I click through the design. I take some notes, and you can put the notes on exact points in the design. So I can say, hey, you know what is this button for, and why is it here? Or is this design, you know, as good as it could be, or should there be some help tips here? And this is much better than doing it over email or in a chat room because, let's face it, you're going to get into a reply all hell, or if it's going to go in a chat room, it's going to be ephemeral, it's going to go away, and everybody's going to forget about it. It really is structured conversations for design, and it's how we do all our prototypes here at Inside and Launch. And good design and prototyping is absolutely critical if you're going to raise money. Everybody knows that. And they power some of the world's smartest companies: Twitter, Airbnb, Evernote, Adobe. You've heard of all these huge names. They're all doing it. And right now, Envision is giving away their starter plan for free for 90 days. You just go to envisionapp.com/twist. Envisionapp.com/twist. It's an amazing product. It's an amazing company. It's really affordable for startups. As a matter of fact, it's free for 90 days. Let's all take a moment to thank at Envision App on our Twitter handles for sponsoring and partnering with us to produce independent media like This Week in Startups. Couldn't do it without you, Envision, and couldn't do my job as an angel investor in building products without you. I love the product. Okay. The market went down 1,000 points. It was really weird. It felt like some sort of trading anomaly. Then it came back, and everybody was in a full-scale panic at the beginning of the week. I was on CNBC on Tuesday. People thought it was going to be the end of the world. They gave me the notes. Oh my God, it's going to be the end of the world. I go on the show. It's the biggest tech rally in 4 years. And now it seems like it's Thursday at the time of this taping, and nobody is even talking about it anymore. Well, what's going on, do you think, Jeff, with the market and its impact on the technology industry?
Well, what's going on with the market? Gosh, if I knew anything about the market, I probably would be doing something other than journalism.
But you've lived through a couple of cycles here. I mean,
Sure.
I'm looking at the market today on Thursday, and it's up. The NASDAQ was up 2.45% today, 4,800, and the Dow is at 16,600. You know, we're off the peaks, but these are huge, ginormous swings.
Yeah.
What is this? This massive fear, uncertainty, and doubt?
Yes. I mean, I think it's I'm probably not the best one to speak to what's going on a global level, but you know, I definitely, when you ask about what the impact is on the tech industry, you know, I've just spent the last few weeks working on a story about the tech bubble, and I've got the sense that everyone in Silicon Valley is just braced for you know, a bubble. It feels like this week is the first week, you know, everybody's sort of taken off their masks and said we knew all along that it was going to happen, and then the market went back up, and everyone said, oh, just kidding, it's not happening. You know, it's like
It is a little bit like a head fake or something.
Yeah.
What's your take on it?
Well, I mean, I think maybe it was a much needed correction, right? I mean, I think clearly there is a bubble in multiple respects, and here in the Valley, we need to think about, you know, how we're funding these companies. As people have said all week, Bill Gurley, the VC, has been saying this for a year or more, that we need to think a little bit harder about funding every company that comes around. And as the market shrinks, that's going to make people, I think you said on CNBC recently that it's going to make people think more about whether or not they should invest in company A or company B. That should happen anyway, shouldn't it? I mean, shouldn't you?
Yeah. It's interesting, you know, from where I sit and I watch this occur, when the market is up, and angel investors specifically, because it's one category of people, angel investors are typically investing their own money. So their net worth, when they look at Wealthfront or, you know, just Google Finance or Yahoo Finance, it does impact how they think. And it does impact their spending behavior. So if they look at their portfolio and they see one day $10 million, and the next day they see, the next year they see 12, or the next year they see 8, they go, you know what? I had some money earmarked for college, I had some money earmarked for this vacation and my net jets or whatever they're spending their money on. And they say, you know what? I'm going to do 5 investments of $50,000 instead of 10 investments of $100,000, which means there's going to be 5 babies out there with no milk.
Right.
And I would tell all my portfolio companies, like, hey, listen, there's only enough milk for a certain number of babies. You need to raise your performance so that when everybody runs to get that sweet, sweet milk,
Right.
you get there and you have some, because not everybody's going to get it, and some of the runts in the litter are going to go away.
Right. Yeah. Well, and then meanwhile, at the other end of the market, you have the fact that so many of these mega rounds for the biggest, basically what people say are really stealth IPOs or private IPOs
Sure.
are being driven by mutual funds, hedge funds, other
Sure.
companies that are actually
Super
affected
smart
when the
people,
stock
though.
market crashes.
In fairness, right? These
Sure.
are smart, sophisticated investors on that end of the spectrum.
They're smart and sophisticated, but they're more sensitive to a market, a market correction
Sure.
than true venture capitalists would be.
Yeah, that is actually true, right? Because the venture capitalists have a fixed size fund, and then these folks are dipping down into this, which they've done before, but it is the privatization of the IPO.
Yeah.
Do you have companies you think are most at risk and companies you think are the most stable when you look at the big unicorns? And when
Well, there are so many unicorns. I think that's the problem, right? I mean, it's just sort of this culture where we really value these companies solely based on how much money they've raised, and that's what the unicorn moniker is all about, right?
is the valuation?
Is the valuation,
Not
right?
the revenue.
Not the revenue, and I think that
Or the earnings, for that matter.
Hopefully, what this week will move us towards is a situation where we're thinking more about
Yeah.
the revenue and the other side of the company as opposed to how much they're valued. Because these valuations, there are so many unicorns. That list came out last week, right?
Yeah.
Some of them
Lee's
certainly
unicorn
right.
report.
Right. Certainly, some of them are worthy of that valuation. So many of them are not. Right.
Yeah. What do you think?
I hate to name names when I don't know for certain that a company is guilty of spending, basically of deficit spending.
Yeah.
But there are definitely big multi-billion-dollar companies that people in the know will tell you are unit economic negative, and
What do some people say are those companies?
some people say,
Yeah.
all
Not
right.
you, because obviously you don't have much vote.
Sure.
But when you hear at the cocktail party, hey, people are worried about this company, worried about that company, that scaling the company is not a good idea because they're losing money on every transaction. What names come up?
So, a name that I heard recently was Instacart. I have not asked them about this. I have no idea what they would say if asked about this.
I've heard that as well.
A company like Instacart or a lot of other companies in that kind of on-demand delivery space, people will say, and
Too good to be true, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It feels too good to be true because if you were paying people to do this, it would cost you more. It just feels too cheap.
Well, the other thing is that your main competitor is Amazon, right?
Yeah.
And the on-demand idea makes a whole lot of sense, but it makes the most sense with Amazon, which has already built so much of the infrastructure to get almost to your door, right? And they're continuing to build it. They're even going so far as to build drones, right?
Yeah. And they're serious about the drones, aren't they?
They're serious, and they and maybe Google, I think, is the other competitor who's also interested.
With the Google
here.
shopping, yeah.
Right. Those are where this is going to happen.
And those people can lose money
They can lose
forever.
money, right? Because they have these great ad engines that generate all this other cash
Exactly.
and other businesses. So I think that's a good example.
Yeah, I looked at a lot of the on-demand ones. Obviously, I was an early investor in Uber, so when these things look analogous, right? They're both in Uber kind of defined it, and then other people followed in. But if you look at, what is the margin on these groceries?
Right.
And then who can scale this kind of business? And you look at who eventually is going to own it, kind of all roads lead to Amazon, right?
Exactly.
It's just a little bit scary to be an investor in those companies,
Right.
for sure.
Right.
All right, when we get back, it's going to be a good segue because Amazon is obviously the worst place in the world to work, unless you want to get paid 2 or 3 times the normal rate of anybody else in Silicon Valley, and then people stay there and incredibly loyal to it. We'll try to figure out and parse the truth with all these horrible stories coming out of Amazon that Jeff Bezos denies when we get back on This Week in Startups. And let me take a break to say thank you to LegalZoom for sponsoring This Week in Startups. If you want to incorporate, form an LLC, get a DBA that's doing business as or more, LegalZoom provides you all the help you need. Yes, LegalZoom is used only to do legal docs. Now they can help you with blocking and tackling day-to-day tasks like phone calls with an attorney, lease agreements, contracts, and tax advice. Yes, not only legal docs, but also you can do a phone call with an attorney, you can do your lease agreement, contracts, tax advice, and you'll always get complete transparency and upfront pricing and 100% satisfaction guarantee. Not a law firm, so they built a network of independent attorneys in most states to provide legal advice and other services to help you run your business. That's important for you to know. And Jill, who works at RushTix, which was one of our launch incubator companies, I call her Jill the Comet because she's always on fire. She's used LegalZoom for years. She's super frugal too. She runs a tight ship, one of those lower burn startups, high revenue, and she uses it for return filings like trademarks and corporation, and has saved thousands of dollars. It's inexpensive, according to her, and the flat rate makes it easy on my budget. She also said that. It's fast, and she can log in and see the status at any time. It's really a smart choice for startups, according to Jill. So here's the call to action for all of our This Week in Startups superfans. Go ahead and go to LegalZoom and use the promo code TWiST, and you'll save even more. Yes, legal help is here, and if you go to LegalZoom.com and use the promo code TWiST, you will get even more help. Thanks to our friends at LegalZoom. I'm getting good at reading those ads, huh, Jeff?
Absolutely.
That's a level of professionalism you rarely see. I can see the way you were looking at me. You're like, this guy's good at the pitch.
I was wondering actually if I should advertise on this show. For myself.
You should,
Yeah.
absolutely. Jeff's latest article in Inc. magazine. All right. I'm sure you, both of you gentlemen, have read this New York Times expose. Horrible, horrible stories about Amazon. What did you think when you read this? And, yeah.
I applaud the New York Times. These are issues that have been written about here and there. Certainly are talked about a lot. They took the time to put together what I think is a pretty good portrait of the unique culture there. You know, people have criticized the article, saying it relies too much on anecdote. Well, they interviewed dozens and dozens
hundreds,
of people
in fact, they said.
at all levels of the company.
Hundreds, they said.
Yes, and
Jackie, what was the number? Look it up on this in the thing. Put it in the chat.
And not only at different levels of the company, but in different parts of the company, different businesses.
This was a lot of research. Being career journalists here, how many hours of work and how many journalists do you think worked on that story? If you had to ballpark it on the New York Times
I'm
level.
sure they worked on that for months, if not years.
Months.
Yes.
So hundreds of hours.
Yes. There's no doubt.
Hundreds of
no doubt
hours
about
to go into like 3,000 or 4,000 words.
Right. And you said that Bezos denies it. Well, I mean, this is also how Amazon operates. Okay, they don't participate in a story like that. They didn't in this one.
Right.
And then when it comes out,
Well, they did participate. They gave
Well-
a bunch of executives to talk to them, but Bezos didn't.
Right,
and none
right,
of the
right.
senior executives did. I
okay,
think.
but then when it comes out, then they sort of discredit it, right?
Right.
And,
More than 100 is the exact quote, by the way, of people
there
they
you go.
talked to.
Right.
Yeah. But Jeff, why wouldn't Jeff participate in it ahead of time to try to stop it?
That's.
And then he came out
I'm
after.
sure they did. I'm sure they did. They also have a very unique way of dealing with the press.
Right.
I can say it's a.
Oh, you've dealt with this.
Oh yeah.
Are they bullies? Is that what you're insinuating? Or do they try to strong-arm? Would they call your editor-in-chief? Would they try to go over your head and try to kill a story? What have you heard them do, maybe from other journalists?
No, it's just it's funny how especially large companies do sort of take on these personalities almost. We do tend to kind of treat them like individuals, and sometimes they operate like that. And Amazon is one of those companies. And when you're writing a story about Google and sort of dealing with Google, it's very different than if you're writing a story about Facebook, for instance, or certainly Amazon. Amazon is unlike any company I've dealt with in that respect. You know, a good way to put it is if you're doing a story on Apple, they just don't return your phone calls.
Right.
Okay.
We're
Right.
Apple.
They just don't. We're just Apple. You know, we're just not going to even acknowledge that you exist. Right.
So you call the PR person, you leave a message, they don't return your call.
Right.
That's what Apple does.
Right. Exactly.
You won't even get them to pick up.
Right. So Amazon does a lot of that, but then it'll reach a point where they'll sort of engage with you, all right? But then they'll call up and they'll say, "Okay, we'll talk to you, but it's all off the record." Okay, and this is with a PR person. Well, you're a PR person and you want everything you say off the record. Even after a story is published, they'll call and they'll say, "There is an error in your story and it needs to be corrected." And you'll say, "Well, what's the error?" And they'll say, "Well, we have to go off the record."
That reminds me of when I used to be a media reporter. That's exactly how Fox News handled pretty much every interaction I ever had with them. They would even ask me to say that they could not be reached for comment, and I would say, well, I'm talking to you on the phone right now, so I can't say that. But
Right. So they want to manipulate
Right.
how they're perceived to a level that would be, I mean, it's Fellini-esque in a way. It's like, you're talking to me on the phone, Jeff, right? Like, so you're talking to me on the phone, but you couldn't get me for comment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It is. It's a good way of describing it. And I think another aspect of it is that part of the Amazon culture is that everything you do is about the customer. It's not about us, is the way they see it. Meaning it's not about Jeff Bezos. It's not about whoever else is at the company, right? They don't want a profile.
Right.
They don't want you to sort of tell a human story about the new guy running the drone operation. They don't want that. They want it focused on the person who that drone is going to deliver to, right? So if there's an error in your story, say that makes a customer look bad or would in some way draw attention to someone at the company, they don't want that to happen. They want it to happen before or after.
Interesting. And what were you going to say, Jeff? You want to add to that?
I was just going to say that to your point, they might be the biggest company I can think of where I can't name a second person at the company off the top of my head other than Bezos.
Because Bezos won't let those people talk.
And he doesn't talk much himself, right?
But he'll talk to Henry Blodgett at Business Insider.
Yeah, we know why that is.
And that is because?
Because he now owns them or invests in them.
He invested in them. So he is speaking at Henry's events, and he'll do videos with them, but not with other publications.
Right.
When you're sitting at major publications like Inc. and Wired, or if you were at New York Times or Fast Company, how does that fly in the newsroom when you guys are sitting around just, chewing the fat, as it were, and you see Henry Blodgett has this unlimited access to him, and it's an investment?
It's the way the world works, right? I mean,
yeah.
What are you going to do? And you find your own way to cover Amazon, as the New York Times did, and as others have done, and as we continue to do, right? There are many ways to cover a company. You don't have to go through the front door, right? And you don't have to necessarily play by their rules.
Okay. Let me ask you guys a question, because listen, I am a capitalist, an American, I sound like Donald Trump now, but I also think about free will and the fact that all of these employees are there getting paid six figures, are known to make double what other people in the industry make. If they are being abused, they're doing it by choice. They're opting in to work there. And if you were able to work at Amazon, does it not mean that you would be able to work at any other company? To me, that seems like it would be the case. Why would people stay at a company that was as abhorrent and horrible as it is, portrayed in the New York Times, where people were reduced to tears? That's what didn't make sense to me.
Well,
these are adults getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. What do you think?
I think that's a good question. It's a complicated answer, but part of it is that they're in Seattle, right? The situation might be very different if they were in the Valley. And the thing that I wonder about is if there does come a point where this comes back to bite them in a big way, as companies move into that area, okay, and as their competition grows in the Washington area, as Microsoft continues its revival, as Google and Facebook and others open offices in Seattle to compete on an engineering level. We mentioned cloud computing earlier in the show. That might be, in the long term, Amazon's biggest business, honestly. It is growing at such an enormous rate.
It's certainly more profitable, the Amazon Web Services.
And it is growing at a much, much faster rate than the primary business. Your competition there is Microsoft, which is in your backyard. Google has an office there. A lot of their work is there.
This is an Achilles heel.
It really is, and maybe that works in certain parts of the company. When it comes to the engineers, which ultimately are going to drive things, how do you keep them if
when they have that much choice? Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that piece documented was how many people said, I worked at Amazon for as long as I could take it, and then I went somewhere else, and I was the best person at the next place that I worked because I had learned this mode of working at Amazon that made me so much better. That's not a great thing to basically just be a finishing school for your competition, you know?
Right. So it's like some crazy drill sergeant who berates you and chews you out, so your performance increases, you get some level of discipline, but it's so hard that you're just like, you know what? I don't need this. I'll go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Now, the thing is, I will say, till now, it has worked, right? I mean, let's use the cloud as another example. Everyone who built that thing is gone, just about everyone. And they left years and years and years ago, and that thing continues to grow. It continues to dominate the market. So many of their employees have left for Google and other places, but it continues to rule the roost. I can say it'll come back to bite them, but it hasn't really so far.
Because there's always somebody coming up who wants to have that intense experience, do you think? Who wants to be driven to the point of tears, to having a nervous breakdown, to see their performance hit this high note, do you think, Jeff?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the one place that, so earlier you said that Amazon has this unique culture. It's actually unique out here because we're used to companies like Google and Facebook and that
Coddle?
I wasn't going to use the word, but yeah, that coddle, that use lifestyle as a draw for hiring. It's not unique in New York. I mean, this is...
It's Goldman Sachs.
Yeah, exactly. When I was reading this, I was thinking
It's Condé Nast.
It's not the Condé Nast that I remember.
Not Wire, but there was some intense... Who would you say is the most intense publisher?
Oh.
Who pushes people as hard as Goldman?
I think I decline to answer. I think like Goldman, the Wall Street.
Oh, okay,
is
so you do think it's Condé?
I did not say that.
It would have to be certain units at Condé, right? Because everything's independent.
My
Gourmet
only
and Vanity
experience
Fair in New York, it's all separate.
Wired, right?
It's
My
Wired.
is Wired. We're out and we're here, and they're there. But Wall Street is a great example. Right?
That is
You're right. That is the culture. Now the difference is you make so much money there, and I don't know how much more you're making at Amazon. Now, famously, at Amazon there's very much a ceiling on the salary, right? And you can make that up in other ways, but I think that's a big issue too, is that you reach that ceiling and then you want to go somewhere else. It's not just about the culture, it's about this really strict way that they do compensation, and that may be changing, but long term, like I said, you really got to wonder.
All right, let me ask you, it's going to get really inside baseball here, but in this case, the media, the New York Times, did such an exceptional job on the story in terms of effort that it has created many, many ripples. And it obviously, a lot of people were calling into question the New York Times' approach to the story and anonymous sources, as we discussed a little bit earlier. The public editor felt that the New York Times needed to chime in. Here's what she said. I forgot her name, but because they changed. Sullivan is the new one. Of course, it was the last one. What was her name? Anyway, we'll come to me in a second. But Sullivan said, the story was, as Ms. Mitchell said, hard-edged and direct without being prosecutorial or breathlessly crusading. It gave Amazon its due in a way, in some ways, Margaret Sullivan, as both a company and an employer. But Mr. Jarvis, I'm assuming they're talking about Jeff Jarvis, makes an important point to which he says, it should have provided more balance and context. In addition, the evidence against Amazon, while powerful, is largely anecdotal, not data-driven. Any anecdotes can be used and interpreted in a number of ways. But is that a fair statement? Because isn't all journalism, I mean, with the exception of data journalism, anecdotal?
Well, I think that, look, it's something that you have to think about, right? There's a real danger if you're a journalist of taking, one person's story and thinking that is the ultimate truth. It doesn't work that way. What you have to do is you have to talk to over 100 people and maybe more, right? That's the difference, right? It's not one anecdote. It's not two.
So why do you think Margaret Sullivan is throwing them under the bus? Because she did kind of throw them under the bus.
No, but these are all things worth thinking about, right? And it's not it's not just anonymous sources. There are a lot of people.
People went on the record.
On
this
the
woman
record,
who had a
like
miscarriage went on the record.
Their pictures.
They sat for photos.
Sure.
That's what I don't understand about Margaret Sullivan's position here, because she's saying Jarvis makes an important point when he says it should have provided more balance and context. I felt it was very balanced in context. Did you feel it was unbalanced?
Not at all.
Unbalanced, yes or no, John?
No. I think a piece like that, you'd be doing it a disservice if you undercut it with a lot of on the other hands. I think the you got to make a strong point as a writer. Otherwise, why are you writing it? Why are you telling us?
Yeah, but I think it was a really nuanced point. I think it looked at that company from a lot of different sides.
Sure.
And I think it did, it did in a way tell it from Amazon's side, and it showed the positive sides of the company in a lot of ways, as well as the negative.
I got to ask a question about Amazon, and to a certain extent, let's say Google and even Apple with their workers in the Apple stores. You have this incredible bounty that is occurring with the white-collar executives, but many of these companies also have blue-collar executives. And it seems like from these not having air conditioners and just really brutal time periods during, let's say, the holiday rush, why do these companies that are phenomenally profitable, or in Amazon's cases could easily be phenomenally profitable, they could just charge a little bit more and it would not impact the downside, I don't think. Why do they have such a hard time treating all employees as one class? Why do they kind of make this that the blue-collar employees have to be, or is that something that you think is not unfair? I'm kind of struck by it, that a company with so many billions of dollars in cash would treat the most minor employees not well. I think Apple had a really embarrassing moment a number of years ago where their people were making less than Starbucks, but they had the per square footage of better than Tiffany.
Oh, I didn't know that. But
Yeah.
I mean, you could certainly connect, Foxconn to this whole conversation as well
Sure.
if you wanted to.
Yeah.
It's just economics, right? I mean,
Yeah. But it seems like so unnecessary, right? I mean, and it seems like actually Tim Cook has become a bit of a humanist on this issue,
No, it's
trying to
true.
level it up.
It's definitely true.
I think that's where the next volley of stories, because when something like this happens, does this inspire another 10 investigations, do you think?
Well, we've seen a lot of investigations, not only
Yeah.
with Foxconn, but with the warehouses at Amazon. There's been a lot of that
mean-
too, and they're making an effort to improve the situation in their distribution centers. But
I would say this is going to sound cynical, but one distinction is that Amazon. You could say Amazon doesn't value what the people do in the warehouses based on the fact that they do want to replace all those people with robots eventually.
Yeah.
I mean, there's
They're halfway there.
they've already started. The Kiva robots are already there. And
The Kiva
Sure.
robots are the
Right.
the ones where you can
Right.
program them just by moving the arm around,
right.
and then it records a macro.
Well, that's a different robot.
Oh, that's
it's
a
called
different one?
Baxter. The
Oh, that's
Kiva,
Baxter.
or what they do is they
The platform ones.
right. They just take a bunch of stuff and move it around the warehouse. But
How close are they, do you think, to having a zero human factory?
that's a long way away.
Okay.
But it will eventually happen, right?
Long way being a decade or two? Or half?
Completely, I think it's a decade,
Majority, 99.
decade or more.
Decade or more. Okay. What about 90%? Just a couple of humans watching the
Maybe
robots.
a decade.
Yeah. Wow.
But I think what you also have to realize about Amazon, it is not on the cloud side necessarily, while it's getting there, on their core business retail side, it is a super, super low margin business, right? It's not like these other companies where it's super high margin. Like you're just making a tiny amount of money on every sale. And so you have to run a tight ship. And that's why
That's why they have that grind out culture.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's why, the wages are kept low, and
It's like Walmart
You
to some
have to
extent,
right.
yeah.
You have to do that if you're going to succeed in that business.
Yes, but I will say this, and reading that piece and reading some of those people's stories, like the
Was there
story
one
about
that stuck with you? Yeah.
Well, this was rebuttal to the piece rather than in it. But did you read the story about a woman named Julia Chaifetz who wrote a piece on Medium yesterday saying
No,
that
on Medium.
she came back from she worked in the books. She was an editor in their kind of original content books push, and she came back from maternity leave. During maternity, as soon as she had her baby, she found out she had cancer. So she came back from 5 months of maternity leave, during which she also had cancer therapy. Got back and on the first day, someone took her aside and said, "Listen, we gave all your direct reports to somebody else." It seems to me that there's a danger with some companies that know that they are the smartest, most innovative companies in the world. They are. Amazon's one of the smartest companies in the world. That they can fall into this rut of saying we can do everything differently. And the thing is, there's not. You're not reinventing. You're not innovating by saying we don't have to give workers certain rights. We figured this out during the New Deal. We figured this out 70 years ago. It's just that we as a society agreed that even though there's going to be an economic cost to giving people rights, they have to have them. You can't turn off air conditioning in factories. You know, you're not inventing something by figuring that out. That's just illegal.
Yeah,
Right.
it's
you
abhorrent. Yeah.
You bring up another good point that the article made very well, is that part of the problem with their culture is that, according to a lot of people who were interviewed, it makes it very difficult for women to rise within the organization. And certainly they don't have women in leadership positions in the way some of these other companies do. And that's a huge issue, you know, along the same lines, right? And a lot of those anecdotes, including that one, kind of bear that out.
Do you think we're going to see like a bunch of class action lawsuits or a bunch of lawsuits after an investigative piece like this that's so deep and cutting and biting? Do you think that sort of spurs the ambulance chasing or even valid lawsuit train?
I don't know. I mean, I think yeah, it's probably
I
spurs
was just curious.
some chasing, but whether or not,
Yeah.
yeah,
I would have thought that because of the story that the journalists would have found a bunch of lawsuits.
right.
Like, I think there's some whistleblower inside of Amazon who has a stack of settlements with, if there are enough of these Julia Sheffitz, I guess is how it's pronounced, Sheffitz, you know, stories about women being held back because of this horrific choice of having a baby and putting life into the planet. I mean, this is really bad. And not supporting people who have had cancer and a baby. Like, if there are enough of these stories, there must be a pile of settlements that are waiting to be leaked out of Amazon.
You know, I feel like every time I hear horror stories and think that that's going to happen, it never does. There's just so many hurdles and disincentives to being a whistleblower in cases like this.
Yeah. And in journalism, it's hard to get that information. It's just hard, right?
Sure.
It has to be leaked. You can't investigate your way to getting it, can you?
The thing you really can't do is just talk somebody into blowing up their own life by airing someone else's dirty laundry. I mean, I've had cases where, you know, I got turned on to somebody who was supposedly going to file some kind of discrimination lawsuit, and then I got to the person, they said, well, you know, I thought about it, and it's just not going to end well.
The other thing to remember is that, I mean, think about you at your job, or whoever's listening at your job. People feel aggrieved often at their jobs, and sort of, and they tend to focus on themselves and not the bigger picture. And a lot of people feel aggrieved, if not most people, in some way.
Most people in their life feel it at some point.
Sure, right, and so you know, these are complicated situations, and although you know, the story you tell might make it seem like you are the most aggrieved person on earth. That may not be the case necessarily.
All right, so let's talk about a pretty amazing moment for computer security. Perhaps I think this will become the seminal moment in computer security and privacy for individuals on the internet. We'll see. Ashley Madison had tens of millions of accounts hacked. The company knew about it for some period of time, and perhaps there are a number of suicides because of this. How big is the Ashley Madison hack? What does it mean for privacy on the internet? And what do you think the ultimate legacy of this hack will be?
I mean, the how big question is, I feel like this is the hack. The Sony hack was the one that made everyone aware that, you know, nobody's above getting hacked. I think this is the one that personalized it for people. Just, I think, like, just scared the heck out of whether you're doing anything that, you know, you could get busted for or not. I think this is the one that made everybody think, geez, like, is there anything I've ever done anywhere on the internet that could bite me in the ass?
Yes.
Yeah.
The answer is yes. We've all done a search that is really horrific.
Yeah.
At some point. I know this because I was in a meeting once and somebody put their search box and did a drop down and saw their history. And I was like, hey, whoa, this person's been searching for interesting things. What is going to happen to the company, Ashley Madison, do you think? I mean, is it over?
Well,
$500 million lawsuit? It's done, right?
It is, but yeah, I think that what is so interesting about this is that you're right. This is an example of insecurity on the internet and how easy it can be to hack into data like that, and that every company and maybe every individual should be concerned. But the other thing that's going on here is that you know, I'm sure there are people who disagree with me, but you know, the nature of this business was on so many levels questionable, right? Morally, and and financially, and would appear from the data dump that that they were lying to the world about how their business operated and who was using it.
Explain that, yeah. What does the data dump show? Because I've seen
part
this.
of it was that if you paid extra, they would delete your data from the server, right? Well, clearly
That sounds like what do they call that? What do they call that when somebody holds you
Extortion?
for ransom? I think there's a term for this. It's extortion, right?
Well,
It's blackmail.
At the very least, it's false advertising, but
Yeah.
So
So there's that.
and then apparently, and again, you got to take a lot of this with a grain of salt. This is all like so much on the internet, it's happening in real time, and
Yeah.
people doing analyses of this data. Some may not be.
We don't know yet, right?
Right, but we have indications that although they were claiming there were X number of women on the service, apparently there were even fewer women on the service than we thought, and many of those female accounts may have been bots, and
Wow.
and so it's questionable how many people were really using the service for what it purportedly was supposed to be used for, and so I don't know. One ultimate lesson is that on the internet, so often you get found out, right? When you crowdsource anything, right?
The truth, the internet is easy to lie, as Esther Dyson would say.
It's easy to lie. It's easy to get found out.
Yeah, it's impossible to hold back the truth. Like at
Yes.
some point, the truth is
Yes,
going to come
right,
out.
Right. To me, that's the ultimate lesson.
Yeah, I think they have to be. I mean, to your question before, I think they have to be completely cooked because they are just. I can't think of a company that has screwed its users in so many different ways, except for the actual screwing, which apparently didn't take place because there are no women on the site.
That is yes. You paid $30 or $40 a month, which I mean, I think that's the price that they were going for, and it's $500 a year or something. And people were signing up for this. Seems to be the name of the game now, is to put in your local government's domain name or CNN or the company you work for, and then find out all the people at CNN or ESPN or whatever media company, and it was dozens of people had signed up.
We had signed up or had someone sign up for them. And
Well, there is that,
that's
right?
the thing. And
Somebody could have signed your account up. I guess you always have that plausible deniability, except the records are so complete now that you're starting to see the user activity. So you don't just have that they signed up. I think you'll have that they confirmed their email address or they logged in on these dates. I mean, you're going to have a level of granularity here that's extraordinary.
Yeah,
it's true.
Are these people going to go to jail, you think, the people who run this site? Is there legal, precedent for people who allow the system to get hacked, or if you get hacked, that you would actually be responsible? Or are those laws that are going to come at some point? We have HIPAA, right? So if companies don't keep their stuff secure, is it just going to be civil lawsuits that
mostly.
are the enforcement, or does there need to be at some point, these companies need to take security more seriously, and there'll be laws around data security for non-HIPAA stuff?
I don't think so. But I think the punishment here is pretty extreme, right? And even without civil lawsuits, just meaning the response to what has happened after this hack.
It is pretty amazing that they were able to take everything. I mean, the depth and width and comprehensiveness of the hack is crazy.
Well, apparently the Ashley Madison's engineers were too busy creating fake accounts to spend any time on security.
And the fact that, this is the other thing, is you deny that it occurred. I mean, with these hacker groups, what is the motivation of the hacker groups? Let's take that in for 1 minute. What is their motivation? I mean, they are extraordinarily efficient, motivated, effective. Who are these people who are hacking this stuff? What's their motivation?
Well, multiple motivations. I mean, just to do it, right? And on some level, it's got to be satisfying. You do it and look at the result, right? I mean, that's power.
Right.
That's power on an extreme level. The other, ostensibly, they're doing it to expose this company, right? This company's practices are questionable. Let's prove to the world that they're questionable. There was an existing lawsuit.
So that's really it, right? It's the questionable price. If the company was on the up and up, if it charged a fair price and it wasn't about affairs and adultery, people are not trying to hack Tinder or Match at the same level as this.
Who knows? The motivation with Sony was different, and
We still don't know.
we
what
still
the
don't know. That's
motivation
what I was about to
with
say.
Sony
We don't know who it was. We don't know what the motivation
What
was.
do you guys think? You think it actually was like North Korean people or whatever, or that's just some way of, it's got to be a disgruntled employee or something, right? Or a competitor or something.
Or the I don't
Or
know,
random.
Right.
Even
It could be just random. That's
The most convincing stuff I saw about the Sony hack made me think that it wasn't North Korea, that they weren't involved, and the whole thing was just a false, which
false
makes
flag
which makes Sony's actions and the whole thing that much more.
with the movie and
screwed
not
up.
putting the movie out,
Yeah.
etc. It's bizarre the times we live in. A movie, Ashley Madison, and then this horrible shooting that occurred where the person shot the person on video and shared it. It feels like we're living in some deranged dystopian media environment. When you look at the world today, like, does it make you hopeful, or does it make you like ultimately depressed that this is some our lives are turning into some bizarre Truman Show, or what was the other movie with Natural Born Killers? There's some weird media internet thing going on in society that is just you couldn't write it as fiction, could you?
Well, I think people have for decades, right? And now it's a lot of it's coming.
Manifesting.
It really is, and I agree. I mean, I write about this stuff, and on one level, it is really inspiring, and the things that are possible, can really be inspiring in a lot of ways, and you're hopeful. But on the other hand, it's already gone past the point in some respects that I ever thought it would, and just in terms of the negative aspects.
Like this guy went out 2 years later, wrote a manifesto about essentially Black Lives Matter, a hashtag, faxed it to people, purposely videotaped himself shooting people, did it on live camera, uploaded the video while he's being pursued by cops. If I only have parts of the story that I understand. Have you been following this, Jeff, this craziness?
I've been following it, but I also, with something like this, I do feel like I did not watch the video. I don't know about you guys. I just feel like I do feel like when you know that somebody's intention was to call attention to what he's doing and was to create a viral sensation. I mean, strictly apart from the fact that I don't want to watch people get killed on camera, but I also feel like I just don't want to be a part.
You don't want to support the person's goal in being a viral serial killer.
Yeah. I mean, just like I don't watch ISIS beheadings either.
Okay.
I didn't watch it either. A lot of people did, and
I inadvertently kind of watched it because I didn't realize people had died, and there was a shooting on TV. It's like, oh my God! So I just clicked on the first thing I saw on Twitter, and you don't actually see them die in it. You just hear screaming, and you know the person's dying. I watched the ISIS videos. Do you watch the ISIS videos?
oh no.
I have a thesis on it. I think that you need to see the level of horror that these sadistic bastards have gone to understand exactly what their motivation is. These videos, have you seen the edited versions where you just see the production value and not the actual death? Neither.
Honestly, I watched whatever this was 15 years ago. I watched 10 seconds of Danny Pearl talking.
Yeah.
In that horrible video.
And then
they made
felt
of
like
him.
you were going to puke.
And
yeah.
I turned
I
it
almost
off, and ever
passed
since
out.
then I haven't been able to watch one.
Here's the thing. It's very complicated, right? I think I was reading about the Holocaust and the first images that came out of the Holocaust. And people didn't want to see what was going on there. And now we know, in a certain way, we have to see this to understand it. Not for any other reason, but to understand exactly how horrible humanity can be. I kind of feel like as Americans, especially as journalists, that you guys need to watch these. Not over and over again, not all of them. But you need to see the level of production value and sadistic behavior by these individuals to understand exactly the level of motivation and deviance that this group has. It's like nothing you've ever seen. They produce videos that are as well produced as anything on CNN and as so well thought out to terrorize and to make you feel like you're watching the worst moment ever captured on film. They're really trying to terrorize people. I think understanding it is important. But I am myself conflicted about it. Why don't you watch it? I'm curious.
I
What's your thinking? On an emotional level, is it just too disturbing emotionally as an individual?
think that's part of it.
Yeah.
And I think there's a little bit of, you don't want to play into that, as Jeff indicated with the other videos, right? Yeah, despite your entreaties, I don't think I'm going to watch.
Yeah, I don't want to. This is going to sound really glib, but it's related to the reason that when I find myself writing a snarky tweet about Donald Trump, I walk away from the computer because I don't want to be part of the phenomenon in any way.
It's interesting, yeah. I respect it, by the way. I respect both of you and both of your positions for it. I don't think there's an answer, right? But then I think about this, because, the whole Holocaust thing, the Holocaust, like looking at the pictures from that and understanding that wasn't my original thought. Somebody had written this, and I read it, and their position was, if people had seen what was happening, maybe the world would have taken action sooner. What do you think of this argument?
I would be more receptive to that argument if I thought that wherever you follow it to is somewhere that is fruitful. Because I personally feel like after the foreign policy that we followed for the last 15 years and the places that it's led us, I truly feel like I don't know what we can accomplish in foreign policy. I'm not saying that to argue for any particular path. I'm saying I do not know what we can accomplish. And so for me to have a very strong reaction to watching a video, I would say, now I feel strongly about it, so we should do X, and I just don't know what the X would be.
What do you think?
Yeah, I'm with Jeff.
It's a great point, Jeff, by the way.
Yeah, it is.
It's really fascinating to think, I think maybe fascinating is the wrong word. It's very, to me, heartbreaking that we helped craft the United Declaration of Human Rights and Eleanor Roosevelt and this whole thing, and then we tortured people. And my takeaway from watching these, and I haven't watched all of them, I've seen one or two, and I'm not obsessed with it, but I am disturbed by it, and I do think about it from time to time, especially when I read the stories. We tortured people. We waterboarded people. We stacked them up, made them naked, and electrocuted them, and had dogs barking at them. And it feels like this has been magnified now by this group as a reaction to that. I mean, and these are also sadistic places on the planet where they also cane their own family members, throw acid in women's faces, bury them alive, and chop off hands as a regular part of the justice system. So it's not that far off from what they do in their normal justice system, but we kind of lost the high ground as a country in a way.
Yeah.
We used to have the high ground. We don't do this. It's not who we are. We fight against this.
Well, we don't put prisoners inside of cars and RPG them, so I guess that's
We
have that much to hold on to.
Disturbing. Okay, listen, you guys have been fantastic, and I love getting inside the media and hearing how you guys think about this. Cade Metz, thank you for being on the program. You can follow him, CADEMETZ, on the Twitter, and he is a senior writer at Wired. Great contributions today. And Jeff is Jeff, BERCOVICE, Bercovici.
ICI, yeah. Bercovici.
Bercovici.
Yeah, stuck it.
Bercovici. I got it. Bercovici. I stuck it. San Francisco Bureau Chief of Inc., previously at Forbes. Okay, listen, great show. We all have to get back to our lives, and we'll thank you to our sponsors, and we'll see you all next time on This Week in Startups. Bye-bye.